So I've got here a nice little Ibarachi Firearms Company Limited, made in Japan. A nice little 410 over under, and just going to go over a few things because I had some issues. I actually bought this at auction. Remove the fore end, just pull the front down. Take the lever, open it all the way up, and be able to pull your barrel out. And that's as simple as it is to disassemble that. If you're going to open up in a minute, like I'm going to show you, to get the receiver off, you need to undo the two screws here. And there's an 11mm socket nut way inside attached to a metal rod. And you just undo that nut and you'll be able to pull this off. And then you're going to kind of see some of the issues that I had with my Ibarachi that I got at auction. It was mighty dirty inside, a good cleaning. One thing I want to point out right now, and I'll draw attention to it again in a little bit, is right in front of the trigger, there's a screw. When I was first trying to look at getting into this, been working on so many English guns lately, I didn't even check the buttstock. I took the trigger guard off with the two screws here, and underneath that there was another one, and it actually lined up with up top here. So I thought, like the English guns, we'll just unscrew that, pull the receiver out, away we go. Once I undid that screw, I actually released an L bracket inside the receiver that was holding all the compression from the firing pins. The strikers, two of them, it created quite a mess for me. You're going to see some of that in a little bit, but just wanted to show you quickly and easily how it is to open this up. Just quite simple to put it back together again. Put the barrels back in, fore end. Again, a really nice little 410, nice safety switch here. I don't like the finish on the Ibarachi. It's not mine, my style. It's really glossy. Reminds me of my father-in-law's Browning X-Bolt. This one's got a few scratches. I'll probably keep it like this. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this gun or not, or if I'm going to sell it. But yeah, really nice little 410. So the issue that I had is that I couldn't find any information on how to take care of this firearm online. And in particular, I'm going to send some pictures up, put something together to help anybody else that's working. This screw here, it should be painted red. Don't touch it. It's caused me to take this whole firearm apart. I'm going to help you out with it. So, see this L bracket here? It's supposed to be sitting like this. If you happen to take that screw out, it's going to push itself further back, lift up, and just create a whole bunch of messes. And so I'm going to show you how to fix that and how not to undo that screw, which I did by the end of this video. And hopefully if you've got an Ibarachi firearm, you'll get a little bit of help. Always nice to have a gunsmith at your disposal who works for cookies and butter tarts.
Hello.
Greetings.
Yo.
So I'm recording this just in case I use some of it for YouTube. Just so you're aware. I gave the parts a bath. Last night I used the bolt from the back end. Took the pressure off of the L bracket, but I couldn't get that screw in without affecting the threads. So I decided that I'd just take everything apart and take your advice and record this for YouTube in case case somebody else has the same issue, but my main, I'm going to use the word fear, is the springs. How do I correctly decompress the springs to go back in? And so I'll compress each firing pin with the spring on it, then slide it into the L bracket, then put everything into place. Yeah, so there's a pin that has to go through the spring, through the center part, which I don't think anything from the firing pins will be in the way. Oh, there's going to be some fiddling. And then through the triangle. Yeah, I don't know what to call this other piece that the firing pins go through.
Right at the front?
Yeah, the pivot.
That's probably your bars that actually cock things.
Yeah.
That's what's cocking your firing pins.
I agree with that. There is a rod that comes back, and then there's a long flat piece the width of the whole receiver that slides in.
Yeah, that's probably the piece that's actually doing the cocking.
Okay. That's actually going to have to go in, I think, before I can put in the lever. Yeah, this is going to take some figuring out. But I think I'm going to have to start with that, I call it, a ramp that's going to slide in. Oh, okay, it's funny how it's like doing a jigsaw puzzle. On the right side of that ramp sliding in, there's a spot for the triangle to fall into. So when you move the lever, that's going to slide that ramp back and forth. And that's going to cause the cocking. All right. So on that sliding plate, got the triangle. So now what I'm going to try and do is get the lever, top lever in there, and I got to get the spring in as well. I'm thinking that the spring, I'm going to have to double check the pictures, but I'm pretty sure that the spring will go in like this. So the long tail goes out, the short tail on Porky Pig goes up and into the lever. Listening closely. With the receiver in your hand, begin to push this pin in and have it just into the edge of, so through Porky Pig, into the triangle. And then we're going to take the lever, and that's actually pretty good because I can see Porky Pig and the triangle. Getting everything to slide in together. Oh, and Porky Pig wants to slide around. Turn the lever. See the pressure goes on the spring as the bar is coming back. And the triangle is in the top of the lever, which is moving the bottom bar. Keep Porky Pig to the left till you get the firing pins in. Yeah. So, important to note here on the Ibarachi, once you get the lever assembly system in, which has the top lever on the right hand side of the receiver, there's what I call the triangle. On the left hand side, I'm calling the spring Porky Pig. The short tail goes into the hole in the lever, and the triangle has a ball on the top, which I've greased, and it's going into the top of the lever. The top of the triangle with the ball goes into the lever. Keep Porky Pig to the left. You're going to have room for the firing pins. And when you move the lever right to left, that causes the bottom bar to come back and engage against the spring, which is going to ask your spring to come back. Silver piece Now mine's angled a little bit. I'm going to lay it in like this, okay? So mine's angled a little bit. Okay, the trick to putting this little rounded screw in is open the lever slightly, position everything. It's really an awkward place to work in, but I wanted everything cleaned up, tickety-boo. And just tighten it down. And if you believe the video that that actually happened the first time, forget it. It's about my fourth, fifth try. Okay. Make sure it's in the lever. Everything's working. Cocking gate. What I was calling the pivot is definitely for cocking. That is nice. So what I want to do now is I want to try and just snug that up. It was an awkward to loosen it, so don't want to strip that head, but yeah, definitely almost one whole more turn after my fingers, so do that. Okay, then tape. This is for the safety side. Again, fingers are facing up. This is a lot easier to get at. Doesn't necessarily mean my fingers are going to get it. I'm going to put the safety in, line everything up, give it a little tighten. Probably a quarter turn after hand tighten. Now I noticed before that this safety switch was a little tight, so I'm just going to put a little of that grease in there. Shooter's choice grease. Yeah. Oh, you know what? What a difference. Put it on both sides, front and back. Just a little bit in there. Yeah, that's just going to coat everything. That's working better already. I noticed that safety was pretty tight when I put it in there. That's moving much nicer. This gun was really dirty. A thorough cleaning like this, even though it wasn't my plan, is certainly going to benefit this gun in the long haul. Really simply made, nice little gun. Okay, so what I'm going to go do now is I'm going to go and see if I can compress the top firing pin. I'm going to try and compress the spring and put a finishing nail behind the spring like so, just to hold the tension until I can get the whole spring, firing pin spring assemblies together. I'll be back shortly. Okay, so I'm going to try and show you here how I was compressing the springs on the Ibarachi. And what I want to try and do is use the drill press. So I'm just going to stick this up into the chuck like so. I've got the vise turned so that, you know, one thing I noticed, hopefully you can see this right here. Sorry, let me use this. Right here, see how the spring, make sure you get that caught up on the edge of the vise and doesn't fall off. On the first one it did that, so I had to do it a second time to fix it. The other thing you want to make sure of, where this is touching the chuck, the two little rods that are going through, they have to be spun so that one of them is facing you. And then again, check that the spring is on correctly, because when you compress down, setting everything up, when you compress down, the hole will be visible to you. I'll just show you. Start to bring the spring down. There's the hole. My hand in the way. Here, try and do it this way so you can see. Shove the finishing nail in. Release. Bring the drill back up. And there we go. The springs are compressed. The finishing nail will hold it in place until I get everything set up, and then I'll pull those out of... Okay. All right, so we're coming back now. We took these out to the drill press. We compressed the spring, used a fine finishing nail onto the firing pins. Note, the top firing pin has no groove. The bottom firing pin has a groove. This is important because in the trigger, once everything's assembled, the trigger needs to be able to slide into this on the bottom. Okay? So here's what we're going to do now. We're going to take the gunsmith's advice, because that's always wise, and I tried it both ways and he assumed correctly. The L bracket cannot be assembled onto the receiver. There's not enough room for the firing pins and the springs compressed to go in. So again, make sure you've got the bottom with the groove, the bottom of the L bracket, fit that in. The top one, do you see the groove on, oh, there we go. See the groove on the top of the firing pin, just behind the spring? Make sure that's facing up. Now on this whole assembly, we're going to put it in together. And so what I call the pivot, which is used for cocking, you need to make sure on the front of it, there's a hole for the spring. On the back, there's no hole for the spring, right by my thumb, okay, or finger there. We turn it back around again. There's a very small spring, fairly long. When it is put in, it's actually going to be arced. So that nipple for that spring needs to go towards the back of the gun, okay? And we're just going to slide this on together. This is going to have to go in as one whole assembly. Then that has to be carefully fit inside. Remember, Porky Pig? I'm not going to show you all this because I'm sure my first time this is going to take quite a bit. Porky Pig has to stay to the left. The firing pins have to go in between Porky Pig and the triangle. And then you got to wiggle everything into space. Hopefully when I come back, that'll be there, and I'll be ready to put the screw into the L bracket. Okay, so I came back before I got everything going here, before I forget what happened. It was a little tricky to get it to this place. I made good use of a very small tool. Come around the back side because my lighting isn't the greatest. I'm actually not doing this in the shop. I'm actually doing it in the house because it's so cold downstairs, or outside. From the back side, try to line up the holes, and once it's slid into space, literally these just boom, right down and in. Sorry if you can't see that. Once I fiddled around in here, got them in front of the holes, they literally are just going to slide right down. One thing I didn't do, putting them into what I'm calling the pivot, is make sure that the flat sides are going through. And so I literally had to get in here, lift this up a little bit, fiddle around. They drop in. You can see the L bracket. Once they drop in, everything's good. So all I'm going to do from here, and again, this is why we're doing this. Where'd my screw go? This screw is what I loosened, which made this whole mess. I was trying to figure out how to open it up, take it apart, look in, and I should have looked more carefully, but at this point, this is when I had the trigger guard off. I was thinking that this, like the old English guns, was going right through. Anyhow, enough talking, let's put it together. So just a reminder, turn it in reverse till the threads click in. I think I didn't tighten anything. Make that nice and firm and tight. Well, looky there. L bracket right against the bottom. Just the way we like it. That's much better. I felt it snap into place. So again, learn from my mistakes. Let it snap into place. This little pin, the L bracket is grooved to take the top of that pin, both sides. Okay, so let it snap into there before you tighten this down, and give that a good tighten. So you know me, I hate being videotaped, so don't ask me why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because my friend, the gunsmith, said it would be really good. Alright, just a little tap into place. Going to the back. The inside has a little finger sticking up. That's going to go to the left side of the gun. Sorry, big fingers here. The safety catch is in the way a bit there. Lift up the finger of the safety, put that in place. The outer one, not great workmanship. The notching out for that. Again, the safety. I noticed this, both sides, this piece for around the safety, you have to take those fingers and plop them up to get this in the correct place. Now, there's a tiny little spring that goes into the bottom of the L bracket before you put the trigger in. Okay? Now I can't remember if I lubed up this trigger, so spring loaded. I noticed a lot of wear on the trigger on the side, so I'm going to put some more of this grease. This is just a little, you don't need much of this at all. Too much makes more of a mess. And I like to grease the moving spots. If I see something that's silver, where it's been rubbing, then I'm thinking, yeah, you know what? That needs a good grease job because it's been rubbing up against something. Just checking the spring load on the back where that's going in. I think I'm going to put just a little dab in there. Work that in. Yeah, that's better. Nice to clean all this up. Well, you got it apart. Might as well clean and lube everything. Wipe off the excess. You don't want extra. Again, there's some silver there. It's trigger's rubbing. Okay. Oh, okay. So just shove that up in. Make sure that the trigger's into the bottom. Line up your holes, look for light. Always nice when you have an iPad in front of you, so. Again, no glasses is really getting in my way. Tap that into place. Okay, longest spring goes into the L bracket, into the nipple. This is going to take some fiddling. I did this once before. It actually goes quite a ways into the L bracket. This bottom spring, once you get it into the L bracket, it actually goes in quite a ways. Remember I said this is the one that will actually be arched when you're done, so don't worry about it. Just like all springs, don't let it fling. Oh, that fit in there nicely. Again, nice little arch in it. Springs in there. Now the moment I'm not looking forward to is pulling those finishing nails out of the firing pins and putting all the pressure back onto the L bracket. Note to self, now that you can see it, do not, let me say it, do not loosen that screw. When you're taking the trigger off, it's going to be here, in here, the trigger guard, okay? Do not, let me say it again, do not loosen that screw. If you do, you are going to have a very clean gun because you're going to have to do everything I had to do without much help except for a good friend who owns a gunsmith shop. So, take the trigger off, trigger guard off, leave that screw alone. Now I'm going to call Jack because I'm a little nervous about pulling those finishing nails out of the firing pins to let those spring tensions off.
Hello?
Well, good afternoon.
So you find all the pieces? Are they still bouncing around the place?
I was able to videotape a whole bunch of this to give the idea that you don't take that screw out. I'm to the place where I've got everything reassembled, lubed back into place. I've got the finishing nails still in, and I thought that I would call you before I pulled, so that if you hear tang and then nothing, you know to call the ambulance.
Oh, sometimes the old trick with doing things is putting them in one of those dry cleaner bags.
Okay.
That way things don't fly quite as far.
So I'm figuring that I'd just take the needle nose pliers and I'll pull out the finishing nails and see what happens.
Yeah, but I'd put a thumb or something, maybe with a piece of leather, opposite the way you're pulling, like on the side you're pulling from,
Yeah.
just so you don't yank something out of line.
Okay. So if I lay it on the table, place something pretty firm.
Use your thumb or whatever.
Okay. Just put a.
That's where you get the blood vessels to tell about it. You could use a screwdriver, piece of wood or anything, just to stabilize things when it yanks so it doesn't come up, everything come out part way and then go spring.
Oh, that really grabs on. Oh. Okay. That was interesting. I didn't get the nail all the way out, and it slid back to the firing pin, or the firing pin slid back. Okay. There. Okay. Yep. That was good. Spring's good. Hey, there's one side.
Okay, now you got the barrels on so you can cock the bloody thing?
No.
Might want to do that.
Before I had pulled that.
Yep.
All right. So there, you learned something by doing it the wrong way again.
Well, that way we'll find out whether you...
All right. So I'll put the barrels in. I'll put the forend on.
Or get the forehand on, because I might have to compress things, but...
Yeah. The front. Okay.
Okay, and if you open it up, that might take the pressure off the spring a bit.
Okay. So I've just got one. I've only pulled one spring out so far. Oh, and it is cocking. Yep.
Open the barrels,
Yep.
and see if it takes the pressure off that pin. And
For sure. For sure. And then I'll pull the other. Yeah.
That easier than the other one?
Yeah, it was a lot easier. So there's a good thing. So since I'm recording you on video, make sure you put the barrels and the fore end on before you pull out those.
Yeah, and open up because that'll
Yeah.
help take the pressure off.
That helped take the pressure off. Very good, Jack. You're now a YouTube expert. If you wanted that, or moniker. Okay, that's good. So it looks like I've got it back together. Everything's clean and tidy. I'll give it a light oil up.
And you can oil it, blow it out, gets rid of the excess oil.
Yeah, that's going to be nice. Thanks for all your help, by the way.
Yeah, not a problem.
I was a little worried that I'd spent money on this gun and then screwed it up. So,
Usually you can figure them out.
like you said, they were put together at one point. You should be able to go back together. Okay, we'll have a great day. Thank you again.
Okay, I'll have to look at your video one of these times.
Well, all right, so we've got everything back together here. I thought a good way to finish this video off would be to get a couple of old cardboard tubes. I put a primer in them. 209 primer. Let's take a look here. I just heard hay from the other room. That's neat. Single trigger. Pull the first one. Gives you the second one. There is a safety which works really slick now. Yep, this is going to be fun. Well, have fun. Thanks for watching. Maybe we'll go get a couple of real shells now.